Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're journeying back to a time of post-war optimism, a time when America was ready to move on from global conflict and embrace peace. But in one small town, a shadow was about to fall, a terror that would earn it the chilling nickname, the town that dreaded sundown. This is the story of the Phantom Killer of Texarkana. Our story begins in 1946, in Texarkana, a unique city that sits right on the border of Texas and Arkansas. Life was returning to normal after World War II. Young people were falling in love, going on dates, and looking towards a bright future. For many, that meant a trip down to a secluded lover's lane, a quiet place to be alone. But these romantic spots were about to become hunting grounds. On the night of February 22nd, 1946, a young couple, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry, were parked on one of these remote roads. Suddenly, their car door was wrenched open. A man wearing a white sack over his head, with holes cut out for his eyes and mouth, blinded them with a flashlight. He ordered them out of the car. The attacker told Jimmy to take off his pants, and then beat him severely, cracking his skull. He then turned on Mary Jean. In a terrifying ordeal, he told her to run, and as she did, he chased her down. He told her he wasn't going to kill her, and after brutal assault, he let her go. Mary Jean, terrified but alive, managed to run to a nearby house for help. Both she and Jimmy survived, but their description of the masked attacker sent a shiver through the community. This was just the beginning. Exactly 1 month later, on March 24th, another couple, Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore, were found in their parked car. This time, the outcome was far more tragic. They had both been shot and killed. The community was stunned. The attack on the first couple had been brutal, but this was murder. Panic began to set in. Was this the same masked man? The local police, along with the Texas Rangers, were now dealing with a double homicide and very few clues. The Phantom, as he was starting to be called, had struck again. And this time he'd left no survivors to tell the tale. The fear in Texarkana became tangible. People started locking their doors, something many had never done before. Gun sales soared. The lovers' lanes, once popular spots, were now deserted. But the Phantom was far from finished. Less than a month later, on April 14th, the terror escalated. Teenagers Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker were out on a date after attending a local band concert. They never made it home. Paul's body was found the next morning by the side of a road. He had been shot multiple times. A massive search began for Betty Jo. Tragically, her body was found nearly 2 miles away, leaning against a tree. She had also been shot twice. The weapon used was the same caliber as the one that killed the previous couple, a .32 automatic pistol. Now, Texarkana was in the grip of full-blown hysteria. The Phantom was a serial killer, methodical and ruthless. The Texas Rangers, led by the legendary Captain M.T. Lone Wolf Gonzalez, descended on the town. Gonzalez was a larger-than-life figure, known for his tough demeanor and his famous saying, "One riot, one ranger." He held a press conference and vowed to catch the killer. But privately, the investigators were stumped. They had no fingerprints, no murder weapon, and only a vague description of a man in a white sack mask. The town transformed. A self-imposed curfew fell over the city as dusk approached. Streets were empty. Porch lights were left burning all night. People bought guard dogs and barricaded their homes. High school students were warned to go straight home after school. The prom was canceled. The Phantom Killer had stolen the town's innocence and replaced it with a suffocating fear. Every shadow, every strange noise could be him. Then, on the night of May 3rd, the Phantom changed his methods. He moved from the isolated lovers' lanes into the quiet rural farmhouses on the outskirts of town. Virgil and Katie Starks were at home in their farmhouse in Arkansas, just northeast of Texarkana. Virgie was sitting in his armchair reading the newspaper when 2 shots crashed through the window, hitting him in the back of the head. He was killed instantly. His wife, Katie, was in the bedroom. Hearing the noise, she called out to her husband. When he didn't answer, she went to the phone to call the police, but it was dead. Suddenly, she saw the masked man outside the window, trying to pry open the screen. As she ran, he shattered the glass and fired twice. One bullet grazed her cheek, and the other lodged in her jaw. plain dead didn't work. The phantom entered the house. Caddy, bleeding profusely, made a desperate escape out the back door and ran through the darkness to a neighbor's house for help. She had survived, and she had seen him, but her description was chillingly similar to the first victim's. A large man, his face hidden by that terrifying white sack. Katie's escape was a miracle, but the attack on the Starks proved that no one was safe. The phantom was no longer just targeting young couples. He was willing to invade people's homes. The investigation was now one of the largest manhunts in Texas history. Police set up roadblocks, patrolled the back roads, and followed up on thousands of tips. The pressure was immense. Every false alarm, every dead-end lead, just added to the community's frustration and fear. And then, a potential breakthrough. A man named Youell Swinney, a known car thief and counterfeiter with a long criminal record, was arrested for auto theft. His wife, Peggy, came forward with a shocking story. She claimed that Swinney was the phantom killer. She gave a detailed confession, recounting how he had forced her to be there during the murders of Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker. Her stories seemed to match details that only the killer would know. The police were convinced they had their man. But there was a huge problem. Under Texas law at the time, a wife could not be forced to testify against her husband. Peggy was the only witness who could directly link Swinney to the murders. Without her testimony, the prosecutors felt their case was too weak to go to trial for the murders. They couldn't risk losing and having a potential killer walk free. So, they made a difficult choice. They prosecuted Youell Swinney for his other crimes, specifically car theft, and secured a life sentence under a habitual offender law. Swinney went to prison, but he was never officially charged or tried for the phantom killings. He always maintained his innocence, and he was eventually released in 1973. He died in 1994, taking any secrets he had to the grave. And so, the murders stopped. After the attack on the Starks, the phantom killer was never heard from again. Was Youell Swinney the phantom? Many investigators and researchers believe he was. The timing fits. His wife's confession was compelling, and he was a violent criminal. But without a trial, without a conviction for the murders, there's always a sliver of doubt. To this day, the case officially remains unsolved. The phantom killer's reign of terror lasted only 10 weeks, but it left a permanent scar on Texarkana. He attacked 8 people and killed 5, turning a peaceful town into a place of nightmares. The story has since become the stuff of legend, inspiring books, and most famously, the 1976 movie The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which brought the chilling tale to a national audience. What makes this case so haunting is the mystery, the mask, the randomness of the victims, and the fact that the killer simply vanished. It speaks to a primal fear, the idea of a faceless, motiveless evil that can appear out of the darkness and disappear just as quickly. The phantom killer of Texarkana remains one of America's most terrifying cold cases, a grim reminder of a spring when a town held its breath and dreaded the sundown. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive into a truly chilling piece of history. What do you think happened? Was Swinney the killer, or did the real phantom get away with it? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime stories. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.